Welcome to the Inspired by Jacqueline podcast, a refreshing place for women struggling with entrepreneurship, faith, or infertility. Stay tuned for today's episode. Welcome everyone to another episode of Inspired by Jacqueline. I am truly honored today because this person I have been following for a while and I just love her journey. And Kerrie Lee Brown is a recognized global journalist, a magazine editor, author, speaker, and women's health advocate. She is published in over 150 magazines worldwide and has held numerous senior editorial roles in publishing and media. Kerrie Lee is the creator and publisher of RedLily lifestyle brand and founder of RedLily Media LLC. She is also the proud mom of 2 boys and a media executive at Success Enterprises. Welcome, Kerrie Lee. And do you want to add anything else to that?
Hi. Well, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm truly, truly honored. You know what? I think you really summed it up pretty good there. All 30 years of my career into a few sentences. So thank you.
Isn't that funny? Because I thought I was struggling with mine. And when you talk about being in the business for over 20, 30 years, it's like, okay, how do I sum that up in 2 sentences?
Mm-hmm. It's tough, right? And I think that's a big thing, like women especially, but everyone goes through different stages. And, our bios and our titles and everything changes, while we evolve as well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So big question of this platform is, how do you start your morning?
Gosh, how do I start my mornings? Well, you know what? I am lucky enough and fortunate enough to live in Denver, Colorado, and the weather here is beautiful. I mean, right here, it's almost November and it is 80 degrees. It's beautiful. So I start in the morning by getting up and taking my dog for a beautiful walk in the nice fall crisp weather right now. I also then come back and I do a 5 to 10 minute meditation. And to some people, it's either meditation or it's prayer or it's just sitting with yourself for a few minutes. I do that every morning and I wish well on my family, health, happiness, and safety, and also that I'm going to have a productive and great day. And then I start my day. So that's kind of the way I start, with a little bit of exercise with my dog and fresh air and nature, and then just sitting with myself and being at one.
Wow. And I have been to Denver before, love the weather, and I'm a fan of fall weather.
Yeah, me too. Sweater weather all the way.
If I can have that 24/7, I would be good.
I know.
So I know that you and I kind of touch base a few times, and self-care kind of like comes out a lot, and our work and life balance. So what I wanted to find out first is, in your very, very first, and hopefully you can remember back when you first started your first working role, was self-care ever in a conversation?
No, I hate to date myself, but I've been in my career for 30 years. And back there, self-care wasn't even really something anybody really thought about, especially the industry I started in. So I started as a journalist in the health and fitness industry. And I moved a men's title to the editor-in-chief of Oxygen Women's Fitness. So fitness and working out and that kind of thing, and obviously eating well and nutrition was high on the to-do list, because it was also part of my role as the editor there and all of the content we created. So I was very aware of that, but I think the word self-care wasn't necessarily something that we all kind of thought it was. We just knew we had to stay, as much physically active and, healthy as we could. But the word self-care really, really hit me years later, actually. And, it spawned out of a heart attack at age 39. I don't know if you knew that, but I had a heart attack, and it was at the height of my career in media back in 2013 now. And it changed my life. So self-care became a big, big topic of conversation for me about why and how to do it and to fit it into our busy lives. And then it also came as an inspiration then to share with other women and other people. And so that's kind of when self-care really came to the forefront for me as a working career person, as a mom, and as a wife. And, it really, really became a big, big part of my life.
Thank you for sharing that because I'm going to date myself too. Um, so, I mean, my first career after college, I studied accounting and I was an accountant for about 15 years. And I hit a point in my life that, not as severe as what you went through, but I started having panic attacks
Yeah.
and anxiety attacks. And I'm like, what is happening here? And at that point, I realized if this happens again, I need to switch jobs
Yeah.
because it was just the long hours, the high demand, the necessity for them not to care about you, but just the job and the deadlines was something that was really creeping in. And it's like, wait a minute, they don't care about me. They just care about the numbers. And when I actually did have my second one, I just actually was like, okay, this is a heavy conversation that I've already had, and it's time to move on. And I did. And I was so happy that I did. I was so proud of myself. So, taking into account and ownership, and as women, that being true to who you are and appreciating life is important. So, thank
You
you
know
for
what? I totally can relate. And I'm so happy to hear that you realized at that point when you were having those panic attacks that you decided to change jobs or careers, because that's one thing when I look back now in hindsight, I didn't do. So my heart attack was turned out to be an electrical issue with my actual physical function of my heart. However, my cardiologist at the time told me that stress and the lack of stress management at the time of my own life was what catapulted it to the severity it was. And so I can totally relate. I had several panic attacks before my heart attack, and it was the first time I had ever experienced it. It was awful. But I didn't take those signs and symptoms. I didn't even take them into consideration. And see, you were very smart then to realize that you needed to make a change. My change in career and even where we lived and my lifestyle didn't change until after kind of the worst happened. And then I had heart surgery. So I really respect you saying that, because it's really wonderful to know that you did listen to your body. It was one thing that I didn't do, and I learned afterwards. So yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I just got a really big visual of just laying there and not being able to function. And I was like, I don't know how I got that visual, but it was really clear to me that if I continued, it was not going to be pretty.
Yeah. And honestly, that's great to hear, because I'll tell you what, when I had my heart attack and also when I experienced those panic attacks, I was at the height of my career in Toronto. So we're Canadian. We're from Toronto, Canada. We now live in Denver. But at that time, I was doing a lot of TV. I was the editor-in-chief of a parenting magazine, funny enough, right at the time. It was that time in the publishing industry where I was kind of going to different publications based on that time in my life, and I had little ones. So that was the perfect opportunity. But it was a high stress job. It was really in the public eye. And I've always been the type of person, and I know whenever I speak to women, and in particular moms, but women in general, we put so much pressure on ourselves, and we want everyone else out there to really think of us as those heroes or heroines that have nothing wrong, or we can hide it all very well. And that's exactly where I was. I was at that stage where even if I had stresses or issues I had to deal with, I was the mom. I was at the forefront of my career, that I couldn't let my guard down. And I think, again, looking in hindsight, that was my biggest mistake, where I never stopped to think about my own self-care at that time, when I knew I was struggling, when I knew I needed to slow down. And when other people even told me to slow down, I thought, no, I've got this all under control. I've always had it under control. And so, I didn't stop to listen to my body. And, ultimately my body told me what I should have been doing. So to hear that again from you is so admirable, because I just couldn't get there when I was there myself.
Yeah. And so just based on what you just shared, and thank you for that, multitasking. You just described multitasking. What would you share to your younger self or the other younger generations now who want to be at the very top and they see that you have to work to get there? Are there any other ways, and what tips would you share?
It's honestly, this topic is so close to my heart. I love all of this because it is really an area I've moved into. So when I was younger, I was always A-type. I had to climb the corporate ladder, move from publication to publication when there was a better opportunity. I was always willing to network, even at a younger age in my 20s. And that was the nature of being a journalist. I mean, you had to talk about personal branding. Now everybody brands, but back then it wasn't even a thing, but you had to do that. And so I was a huge multitasker. And I'm also a people pleaser. So, I mean, add those two together, and I was always juggling a lot of things. And something that's quite ironic is that before I had my heart attack, I used to commute 2 hours each way every day. So it was 4 hours a day commuting to my job for 8 years. Wow. Yeah, from the train to the subway, you know, into the big city from the suburbs. And I was already writing a book about balancing work life before my heart attack. So how crazy is this? So again, multitasking. I had this high-powered job in media, in the public eye. And then when I was commuting, which really ultimately should have been my downtime to kind of digress and after the day and kind of think about my children and everything else that was going on at home, I was writing a book. So I was filling that kind of spare time I had to really focus on me. I was writing this book and I was trying to do it. And then all of a sudden I had, you know, my heart attack shortly after that. But back to multitasking, it's just in my nature to do so. And what's really ironic is that I interviewed Deepak Chopra years ago, and it was in Toronto, and I interviewed him, and he actually talked about the topic of multitasking. He told me, and he told every other reporter there, but he said that just because you're a multitasker does not mean you're the most productive person, because you're not focusing on one or two tasks well. You're too thin, and you're doing too many things not very well and not necessarily well. So it really hit a chord then. And that was kind of at the point where I had been in my career for several years. I was already carving out a path of where I kind of wanted to take my career in my life. And then I was always thinking of the future. And then all of a sudden, my heart attack happened very shortly after that. Isn't that funny? When literally on the topic of multitasking.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And so you mentioned work-life balance and that you were starting to write a book. So the balancing act, right? The famous words of the balancing act, work-life balance. I know I have my own definition, but I would love to hear what work-life balance definition is to you. And how long did it take you to create a plan that included self-care?
Mm-hmm. Well, again, I always thought, it's so funny, you know, you grow up in an age where you think, you know, women can do it all and we can have it all, and we can, there's no holding us back. And I always kind of, you know, believed in that kind of theory. And I know we can do it all. But the thing that I noticed and realized, though, after doing so much and really not taking care of my physical health because I was trying to do it all, do we need to do it all? Or do we need to do it all at one time, right? It doesn't mean that you're any less of a person or any less successful if you go after your goals one at a time or in different stages of your life. And that was something I've only learned, you know, as I've gotten older. But when it comes to balancing, so back then I thought I could just do it all. I was balancing work and life as I thought was the best way I could. I was balancing social life, never said no to a social invitation, commuting long hours. You know how it is. And I think now that balancing act, and I don't know if you've heard of it, like it's more of harmony now, right? It's really the ebbs and flows of being able to balance. It's being able to, you know, look at everything you're doing in your life, realizing that you can definitely attain it all and achieve it all. But when do you need to do that? You don't have to do it all in your early 20s. You know, I do talk to, and I do a lot of speaking for younger aspiring journalists and people in media, and also students at universities. And I do talk to them about that. You know, I was there. I wanted it all in my 20s. I wanted to, you know, run this huge magazine in New York City and own a penthouse. That was my dream when I was 20 in New York. Like I wanted to do that. But, you know, it's taken time to get where I am in my career. And I think, again, just knowing that balancing work and life is also the part of the journey. And it's learning that, you know, sometimes your priority has to be work, but sometimes it's also more family and friends, and it's your health. So I think balancing, again, it is a balancing act, but it's also realizing that different stages of life are important to look at what balance really means to you.
That last one part is something that I'm focused on super focus on,
Mhm.
because I talk about like what was important back then may not be important right now, and what's important right now may not be important tomorrow. Not that it's not important, but it's not the focus, right?
Yeah.
And so I've learned how to kind of, after a while, create that path of, okay, so that was important back then. What are my priorities now? And what are the percentages that I have to work with in reference to, this is my personal life, this is work, and this is me. We have to separate. Personal doesn't mean just me. So it was to kind of step out of that shell and say, okay, let me look at everything and prioritize and understand, okay, today, this month, it could be a daily or a monthly or a quarterly thing that we can work out. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and I just to add to that, I think when I look back on my career and my life, like in my 20s, I didn't get married till I was 29.
Mm,
So all of my 20s really were focused on my career and work. I mean, I bought my first house at 26 on my own. When I look back, it was also the transitional periods between, that and then getting
yeah,
married and having children, but then keeping up your career. And then, now my children are 15 and 20. So they're obviously moving kind of out of the roost, and now I'm at another transition. And I think the biggest thing is realizing that, especially as women, it's okay because life changes, and it's okay if
yes,
we change along with it. And if our priorities change. And I think, so when I look back on my 20s, I never thought there would be those transitional moments in my life. I just couldn't see
exactly.
beyond that next 5 years,
Mm,
let alone 10 or 20 years. So I was really more in the moment of, what am I doing now? What can I do next? What can I do? And, and that's great because that's how we are wired when we're younger. We have much more energy to do that. But
oh, yeah.
I think a lot of my kind of non-self-care practices came into play as I got older, and I still thought my priority 100% should have been my career. And then all of a sudden I have children and I have responsibilities at home, and I didn't really take time for myself to sit and think about what those priorities were and why they were changing and how they would change. So again, back to priorities, it's all about
Yes.
prioritization.
Yes. And the other thing is, as women, not to take into that imposter syndrome and hear all the noise of, oh, what are you doing? Oh, wow, you're doing a lot. But then you're doing your best to prioritize, and you're not, you trim it down and everything like that. But people from the outside still see that, oh my gosh, you're doing a lot, not understanding that you do have a set priority. So, how do you deal with that communication, or those topics of everyone saying, wow, I see you flying all around, you're doing so much, and when do you spend time with your family, and so forth. So how do you go about that?
I think it's interesting because I've always had a lot of people say, oh my gosh, how do you do it all? And,
Yes.
not only people now who see me on social media and people who are kind of new to me and getting to know me, but also people from my past. I mean, my best friends from high school still say, I can't believe how much you do. It's kind of ingrained in me. I've always been a go-getter in regards to doing everything I want. I think that a big key to that is doing what you love. And I know that sounds probably cliche, but if I spend a lot of time on my business on the weekends, when most people would say, I'd rather like not think about work, it's because what I do in my business, I really enjoy. And so that brings joy to my life. And that's why on a weekend, if I spend doing working on my RedLily platform, that's because I love it so much that it actually brings me joy and brings me peace. So to other people, it looks like I'm just working 24/7. But I think as long as you do what you enjoy,
Mm-hmm.
then, it's not really work. And I know, again, that sounds very cliche, but it's kind of true. And then my boys right now, I mean, they're very obviously independent, and they're very high level athletes themselves. And, we have a schedule and they get to their sports and all this, and they're very independent. And I think that, I'm just at that stage. So I don't have little ones anymore where I'm having to tend more to them on the weekends or after school. They have their own lives. So now it's a matter of me like focusing on what I want to after kind of the traditional work hours. But I get out, I have a lot of friends, and I travel quite a bit, whether it's for work or whether it's for personal. And I love that. I mean, travel brings me joy as well. So I think I'm at that stage in my life. I'm 51 now. I'm 51, and I want to do what I enjoy, and I look forward to a future of being able to cater to that need, because then I'll be happier and healthier and then more productive and also there for my children. So that's kind of my goal now.
And that's exactly kind of like where I feel like I'm at right now. That again, I enjoy travel. The work that I do is very specific in the attention and the details that I have to make. So when I'm not working, it's me time. It's the time that I, schedule everything, but also schedule my me time. And I just came back from Miami from an event on Saturday, and then Saturday I just decompress. So it's just taking that time, and it led into Sunday. Okay, I need a little bit more decompress, and then back to Monday already. So understanding those boundaries as well. You mentioned a little bit about RedLily. So RedLily is your passion project. Tell me about RedLily and what was the need for it.
Okay, yeah. Well, so I had my heart health issue and it changed my world. We ended up moving to the US to Colorado, and I decided to write a book about my heart experience because I knew that there was a reason why this had a bigger reason than me. Not only for me to look at my health and fitness and nutrition and change my lifestyle, but also because I knew, because I had a platform in media, I wanted to share my voice to other women and to other people reading my book about self-care and, 10 signs you need to slow down, because I was living and breathing, basically a walking billboard for self-care at that point. So I wrote my book, I got it on Amazon, it's still on Amazon, and it's a short book, it's an easy read, but it's a guidebook for people to really sit and just think about their own health. And so it was shortly after that, I was encouraged to write another book. And at that point I thought, and I was going to, but then I thought, no, I'm going to start a platform, like a website, where other people can share their stories. And they're not all stories about heart health. Obviously, they're out there. It can be about health. They can be about relationships, work, family, creative, corporate lives, anything, really anything that resonates with somebody and their journey. And they're really heart stories. So I started RedLilyLife.com. And I started, a passion project of just sharing people's stories. And it's something I offer for free. I mean, I have 1,500 people from all around the world who have shared their stories now. And it's really safe place for people to share if they don't have their own website, if they don't have a podcast, if they don't have a blog, if they don't want to write a book and they just want to get their story out there to share with the world, or just to even to get it off their chest. And so I started RedLily Life, and it's now turned into something that people resort back to refer to. And, people have written 2 or 3 times for me and just shared what they want to share. There's not a lot of restrictions on what's shared. Some people say, do I have to reveal all the gruesome details of my divorce or whatever? No, you just reveal what you want to. It's up to you.
That's awesome.
So it really turned into this platform of just giving back. And I love that side of what I do. And to me, it's just providing an outlet for people to share. And I hope you contribute to it as well.
I have it on my to-do list for sure. Yeah. I have like 2 or 3 stories. I'm just trying to figure out which one I'm going to start with.
Yeah. And it's just really evolved. I mean, I am actually at the point now where I'm starting to look at RedLily as another avenue to share more voices in different ways. And so you'll see coming up in the new year that there will be more opportunities on there, and I'm creating more content and exclusive content for anyone who wants to, follow along. So that those are some of the exciting things I have on the go with that platform.
Awesome. And so I know part of your bio, it says you're a women's health advocate. So explain to me how important just those words are, and that advocacy, and what is it that you advocate for and how?
Well, I mean, my biggest advocacy has come out of my heart health experience. I get asked to speak and also to write. I've written tons of articles on heart health in general. Because it really hit me out of nowhere. I don't have, I'm not a smoker, I'm not overweight. There was a lot of things that your typical heart attack kind of survivor will say that, maybe they went through. So heart health became a real big passion of mine to tell women that stress is also a big, big contender in, heart health issues and diseases. So I became a women's heart health advocate and stress management kind of coach. And I've talked to a lot of people about recognizing daily stressors, dealing with daily stressors in your life. And it just has evolved. So a lot of that kind of advocacy has come out of my own experience, and also talking to people on podcasts or on radio shows, television shows, about what is important in my life and how I've improved it, knowing and being aware of certain things that women can do to obviously take care of their own health. And it's just become a big thing. And one thing I want to add is, and I've learned more and more about this throughout my over the years, is relationships. There can be like tons of relationships that are not healthy for you. And whether that's in relationships in a personal level, like in a marriage or a spouse or a relationship, or it could even be within the work environment. And again, these are things I've learned over the years. And now I speak to a lot of women about how to recognize when relationships or different situations are not good for your energy and not good for your health ultimately. And so those are the kind of things that I now speak a lot about and write about as well. And I continue to be kind of a living and breathing example of what can happen if you let all of those things get to you.
Wow. Listening to you, and it's like, the platforms that I'm creating, it's kind of like similar to what you're describing. I had a journey dealing with infertility 30 years ago, and I never thought that it would come out where I would start sharing about my journey and then create a platform, including this podcast as well, but also be able to be so vulnerable and then create an advocacy for it, because I'm building this advocacy platform that is about having conversations sooner than later. Because as women, we learn so many different things, but not a whole lot of things that we should be considering. And it's interesting enough that this year there's so much conversation about women's rights to your own body that it's like, wow, it's like the right moment. Everything is just connecting, and really, really excited. So I'm happy for you and RedLily and everything that you offer and that you're able to put together through that advocacy as well.
Yeah. And I think, again, like that's why we resonate so well, is because I feel like a lot of women, like, we're caregivers by nature. I mean, whether you have children or not, it doesn't matter. By nature, we're caregivers. And I think, several years ago, it was big, everybody started talking about mental health and, watching out for our children's mental health and our teenagers' mental health. What about our mental health? What about all that we're going through? We don't even realize that us as women take on so much responsibility and so many responsibilities in our lives. And that's where I've realized that all this has added up. It's all added up. And I want to be here for my children. I want to be as healthy as possible, mind, body, and soul for them. So that's where the advocacy thing, my advocacy is really, there's got several tentacles to it. Mental health is a huge thing too. And again, realizing where those toxic relationships are, or just knowing when to slow down, knowing where and how to pick your battles with certain people at work. I mean, there's so much.
Oh my goodness, that's a big one.
And also, you mentioned it too about setting boundaries. You mentioned that, and it's true, because I've learned too not only in my personal life, but also in my work life. And I think I'm so happy to hear that you're really expanding your business and your passion project there too, because it's so important to let younger women know that these are things that us as experienced women have now realized. If I only knew back in my early 20s, not to stress about this, or not to worry because you have your whole life ahead of you. Not to, give in to certain relationships, or to, who knows how people's lives could turn out if we had, known a little better. And that, again, coming back to what would I tell my younger self? I would tell her not to stress about what you can't control. And, people have said to me that I like to have control, or I'm a bit of a control freak over my life. Well, I guess we all are. I mean, we like to be in control of what we do. But I think I wouldn't put as much pressure on myself in my early 20s. That's for sure.
Yeah. And you mentioned the boundaries. And it's funny because this past weekend, I actually went to Miami it was a women's panel and then a gathering. And in the gathering, it was about, wow, Jackie, you're really good with boundaries. You should teach a class. We need to learn more. And because I have been working on that for years, and I've not that I've perfected it, but I know I feel grounded enough to feel very secure about owning it and understanding what my boundaries are, just enjoying the process of saying freely no.
Yeah,
That's powerful enough.
100. Honest to God, we are on the same wavelength. So there's actually a chapter in my book, Learning to Say No. It is in there, and I wrote this book a few years ago. And I like to say no is a one-word sentence. I mean, it is not a bad thing to say no, which again I had to learn, because I think that the more you can learn to say no, set those boundaries, give time to yourself, you're going to be better off and healthier and more productive for the next person or for your family. And I think that you owe it to yourself to really, set these boundaries. And again, I'm learning as I go as well. I'm still learning about where I want to set boundaries in my life. And I'm fortunate to be in a position where I can make some decisions, that impact my, my mental health in a way that I feel good about it. But years ago, I would never have been able to say that. And so now that's where, again, my advocacy, it comes down to being a strong woman in what I do on the personal and professional side, but also knowing in my heart that I can now set boundaries, knowing that it's best for me, and I can feel good about that.
And so if you had one superpower, what would that be?
Oh, goodness. You know what? If I had a superpower, it would probably take away disease from everyone who's ill, which is very interesting. I think it would be something like, make everyone healthy again or something like that. I don't like the unknowing, from, years of, killing our bodies with whatever. And I think that now more and more education has come out about what we're eating and the environment and all these different things and what's kind of impacting on us. And I think if I could have a superpower to just get rid of it all, that would probably be.
That is awesome. And so, as we had chatted about self-care, right, and you had said something to me in reference to self-care is imminent to a happy and healthy life. What are some tips? Because I know, mental health came out and there was big conversations, especially after COVID and during COVID and all that stuff, right? And then the conversation then led into self-care, and especially women in self-care. So what are some tips that you feel have helped you in reference to your self-care and what you would recommend to others?
Yeah, I mean, again, my whole book is about all these tips. And I feel like because it was a real therapeutic project for me, because I was literally reevaluating my life. I thought I was healthy. I thought I had a good lifestyle. I thought I dedicated enough time to my eating well and also exercising when I really wasn't. So I think my number one tip would be to do daily check-ins with yourself. Whether that means, like I said, in my morning routine, like whether that means, just reflecting on your own, meditating, praying, whatever it means to you, journaling. Those are big for me. I never did those before because I always thought, again, I had it all under control. I don't need to do that. So one of the biggest things is a daily check-in, and it's with yourself. It doesn't have to be in the morning. It could be anytime. But just really like kind of centering yourself about where you are, how your day's going. If it's not going well, get out of the situation, set that boundary, or maybe you need to pick up the momentum in some other area. So daily check-ins are definitely big for me now with self-care. Another one is definitely exercise. You cannot get enough of exercise and getting out in the fresh air. If it's going for a walk, taking your dog for a walk, going to a park and just sitting there and again, just reflecting. Those are huge for me. Another thing I started to look at after my heart health scare was my nutrition. I started to see a homeopath and start looking at, supplements. I'm at that stage of life where women are going through menopause. And it's all different again. That's a whole other conversation. But it's really taking the time to look at your health and find out from the experts or the doctors or whoever you trust about where your body is at this age. And knowing that next year will be different again. So again, checking in with your body, checking in with the professionals, or at least doing your own research, and not expecting that just because, I feel good and I feel like I'm in my 20s doesn't mean that my body necessarily is. So checking in with your body, and then also asking for help. This one was a big one that I didn't do years ago, and it really, really lends to my self-care tips now. Ask for help. Even if it's not from a professional, it could be from a friend, a colleague, a spouse, it doesn't matter, a stranger. If, like if you're just getting to know someone, if you find the vibe and the energy is good with somebody and you need to ask for help, or even just a conversation can be helpful. I love to do these kind of podcasts because it really, I know that, you asked me to be on this show because you want to hear from me, but I've already learned a lot about you, and it's just these open conversations. I love them. They are good for self-care, I find.
Yes, I definitely. And I want to go back to, you mentioned journaling. Like as a young girl, I always had a little diary or journal, and every single year I would buy a new book. And when I created my new platform, I wanted to create a journal for the three pillars that I have: the entrepreneurship, faith, and or infertility. And I actually started with the infertility journey journal. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is just what I wish I had when I was going through it. So now I'm working on the next two, because I feel journaling, you can't get enough of journals. They're so rewarding. There are some that are blank and some that are activity driven. Mine, I decided to have some activity driven, some time to reflect and release. And so I took my experience, like you said earlier, based on your experiences with the healthcare, the health advocacy piece, you have been able to share your experience, but also share with others and help others, right? Mm-hmm. And that's how I'm starting the process. First with the podcast, and then the journals, and then I have some programs coming up as well. So
that's great.
I'm really excited about that.
I love that. And, the journaling is very close to me too. So my book was published out of a series of journals. Journaling. And I've always been a journaler. I'm a writer by trade. I'm a journalist. Yeah. I've worked at print magazines my whole career. So that's really innate in me. But I still feel, I actually have a workshop I piloted last year, and it's about the art of storytelling. And I've done it at a few universities now. I'd like to actually do more of them. So this is something else I'm going to be pursuing in the new year, is getting into bigger audiences or even one-on-ones and taking people through that journaling exercise. Because a lot of people that I've met, anyone can journal. But some people are too critical on themselves to put anything down on paper, or they don't want to reveal certain things. They don't want to know that once something's written down, it's real. And I think that's the good thing about it. That's where my platform is. My platform is a place for RedLilyLife.com is a place for people to journal. And I think that it's so freeing. And I think that if you don't want anyone to find it, then put it in the fire afterwards, burn it, whatever, tear it up. It doesn't really matter. I think it's just the art of knowing that you can share your story, get it off your chest, out of your mind, out of your soul, if it's heartache, or even if it's something that you're, basically experiencing at that time. There's so many opportunities and so many benefits of journaling, I find. So I applaud you for also going that route too. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And then out of our entire conversation, actually, before I ask you this last question, you mentioned personal branding. If I just want to get a glimpse into your world, as far as what does personal branding mean to you, and why is it important for entrepreneurs or those in business, especially women, to create their personal brand or have an understanding of their authentic personal brand?
I love that question, because personal branding, I mentioned in the beginning of our talk that, it wasn't really a thing when I was younger. I think we were all trying to do it, but we didn't know what it was called. Mm-hmm. In journalism, you're always trying to get your persona out there, right? Updating your bio, making sure LinkedIn is always up to date, making sure that people knew who you were. So that you could get jobs or clients. And that's the nature of the business I'm in anyway. And nowadays, personal branding has changed so much. I'm still learning and growing my own brand, but the experts out there on personal branding, it's all about being out there and being noticed. And from my experience, I mean, I'm the editor-in-chief of Success Magazine. I get like, I don't know, a few hundred pitches a day from people who want to be featured in the magazine or on our website, success.com. And, I always say it's those that are trying to pitch me, whether they're through a PR firm or by themselves as an entrepreneur. I mean, it's interesting to see the different kind of, tiers, if you will, of how people actually brand their own work or brand themselves in their business. And so personal branding is personal. Like it says, it really is. Personal brand is personal. And it's kind of however you want to portray you and your experience and whatever your mission is at the end of the day, whether you're, again, an entrepreneur, a solopreneur trying to get individual clients, whether you're a speaker and you want to get on stages, or whether you are a big CEO at a huge corporation and you are trying to get the word out about your vision. It really is personal. And I think that it's something that we will always be improving and evolving as we get older, as our businesses change, as our entrepreneurial spirit changes and our opportunities. Myself in the new year, I'm actually currently working on an overhaul of my one website, kerrieleebrown.com. And I will be evolving my own personal brand. So again, learning as I go. And no one is there's not one person that is an absolute expert in it, because
Exactly.
It's just so personal to what you want to do. So if it works for you and you're all over social media and you are trying to pitch magazines and you get your word out there, or someone takes a liking to you and wants to share your story, that's wonderful. But then there's other people who just build their businesses based off of word of mouth or referrals. And that's okay too. So I work with tons of entrepreneurs, like across the board. So again, it's a very important nowadays, personal branding, but I think that it's hard for me to say what will work for everyone because everyone's different.
Yes, and I wrote a book for event planners, and being an event planner myself, and the first chapter had to be about, and I didn't call it personal branding. I call it kind of understanding your unique quality identifier, which is your true authentic self, right? Because you have so many things in front of you, from social media to people going back and forth all around you and all these connections you're making, that you tend to have issues sometimes figuring out who you are, right? And so I break it down into a unique formula. But like you said, no one has the perfect formula. But at the end of the day, it's about understanding who you are and owning it, right? And feeling comfortable with it, because no one can give you that formula. No one can tell you who you are and how you should be authentic. When it gets to that level, it's like, okay, is it truly you?
Yeah. And I think it's so funny when I look at what I'm doing now in my own kind of professional world, my vision or my goal has changed over the years. I want to present as an authentic person as well. And that's why I call myself, and I always say this to people, I'm a traditionally trained journalist, but I'm a heartfelt storyteller. And I think because that's where my own personal brand has evolved to, being authentic and talking in an authentic way. I mean, we can talk all day long about, how to put a magazine together, which is very skillful and experiential. And, but you can also Google that as well. Exactly. I like the conversations and I like meeting people and finding out their story behind their story. That's where I am now taking my personal business to the next level, because I find, just like you, I feel like when you can present yourself as authentic, and when you can present yourself even in business authentically, then I think that's how you're going to stand out. So I agree with you. And I feel like our paths are definitely going to cross again. I really feel that. I really do, because I feel like that is the way I'm going to go, and utilizing our experiences, right, in personal and professional life, bringing that out in our own voices, I think is so crucial today, especially with all the chaos in society and the world and everything going on, like all the noise. It's so important. And again, it all comes down to how you're going to be healthy and happy in the long term, right?
That's the ultimate, being happy and healthy. That's so important because it's so you can easily forget that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So what is the biggest takeaway from today's conversation that you want listeners to take away with?
I think one of the biggest things is that no matter who is listening to your episode here, I think it doesn't matter what age you're at. I think that it's okay if change happens. I think that we evolve with change. I think we become better people with change. And I think that, listening to your own body and taking care of yourself first before anyone else is going to actually give back to them tenfold. You hear the saying all the time, put your oxygen mask on first in the airplane. You know what I mean? You have to. And
Yes.
I've learned that I have to do that, even if it means setting boundaries, like we spoke about. That's another, like, it really is. And sometimes those boundaries are with your loved ones. And,
Oh, yes.
you know, with your children. I mean, it's extremely hard to say no to your kids or like good friends, but you have to. And maybe that also means taking a break from social media or telling your boss at work that, no, I do need a Friday off to have a weekend to myself. Whatever that means to you, I think it's just really important. So self-care is imminent for happy and healthy life. And I feel like, again, no one's perfect. So we all have to work on it. And I think we all have to keep reminding each other. So I'm very fortunate that we've had this conversation today.
Yes, thank you so much. And then is there anything else you want to add that we didn't discuss?
Well, I mean, I just want to add that, I am also here to help entrepreneurs too. And given my experience in, at Success Magazine and what we do to help entrepreneurs get their voice out, their mission, their vision, I just want people to know that I do consulting as well. I part of my business at RedLily Media is consulting with people on how to work with the media, how to pitch the media, how to make yourself look authentic. And I think that's what stands out to an editor because I've been there and done that. And, if anybody wants to work with me, they can get a hold of me and just to follow me on Instagram and social media because you'll see what else is coming down the hopper. I'm also working on a second book. So I look forward to releasing that.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. I'm going to get your first book and I can't wait for the second. But how can they follow you? What are your handles?
Yeah. So the biggest one is at Kerrie Lee Brown. So KerrieLee and Brown. That's the big one on LinkedIn and everywhere, like social media, Facebook and X, and also, of course, Instagram. But also you can follow RedLily Life. And I think that's a good one that if you want to get to know what my community is like and the kind of stories that I share and the motivational tips, I'm going to be really ramping that up too over the next couple of months. Right now, I run that on my own. I do it all on my own. And like I said, it's a passion project for me. So any support I can get there would be great. And then my websites, KerrieLeeBrown.com and RedLilyLife.com, which is my women's storytelling platform.
Awesome. Well, Kerrie Lee, thank you so much. I so appreciate it. This is like a conversation as near and dear to my heart. So when we discussed self-care, it was like, oh yes, that is awesome. Because I feel this is like the key to not just the platform that I have, but also people see us, whether we're online or on social, and we're doing so many different things, so many amazing things, but then we don't discuss self-care as often, or if we do, it's kind of like at a lower level of conversation. And this is why I created the platform, to talk about the struggles, and the things that we really need to focus on so that we can be better entrepreneurs, so that we can be better at the work that we do and the work that we provide others.
I agree 100%. I think that self-care is at the root of really any personal growth and any professional growth. Nowadays, it's something that is not talked about enough, I think. And I think that what you're doing is wonderful. And I hope that we can maybe collaborate again in the future.
Awesome. Well, with that said, thank you again for being here. And for everyone who tuned in, thank you so much. Make sure to follow, just subscribe, comment, share, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of Inspired by Jacqueline. Take care.